Hey budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me today as we work on the old arborvitae bed. So let's go. This flower bed is located on the south side of my house. It's about 16 feet long by 7 feet wide. When we first moved into our house about 20 years ago, there were 3 arborvitae planted in here, and they were very small. But over the years, they got larger, and honestly, we didn't take care of them. We just let them do their own thing. And as the years passed, the arborvitae just started to not look very good. So we decided a few years ago just to remove them from this bed. And I made a short video basically explaining that if there's something in your garden that you don't enjoy, remove it. If it's something that's unsightly or something you just don't like, don't keep it. It's better to just remove it and put something else in that you're going to enjoy. And then last year, together we installed a couple of rhododendrons. They're small leaf rhododendrons that were planted up along my driveway. They were not thriving. They were very small. And so we decided to put them in this bed instead. And ever since then, they have really taken off and started to put on some nice new growth. We also installed drip irrigation in this bed, which has been wonderful. It really has helped a lot of the plants thrive. Last spring, we planted a bunch of annuals in here, and even though they were pretty small at the time, as the season progressed, they really took off. They looked so beautiful in this bed, and honestly, I want to repeat that pattern as close as it was last year. In the center of the bed is Ajuga, or bugleweed. It's a wonderful, beautiful ground cover, but like many ground covers, if left unchecked, will take over an entire garden. So I thought it's perfect to just keep it in the center of this bed and keep it in check. And then on either side of the small leaf rhododendron and Ajuga are a bunch of different perennials. There's Candytuft, which already bloomed and is just starting to go by, and it looked very nice in the early spring months. And then on either side of the Candytuft are just some spring blooming perennials, some of which were here last year and some that I just took from other parts of my yard and put on either side of the bed here. There are some beautiful pansies, some that came from last year from seed, and then some that I put in the early spring months just because I had a couple left over that I had started from seed. There are some weeds that need to be attended to. And then finally, there's Alyssum. Now, the Alyssum dropped its seed from last year and is scattered throughout this bed. So we're going to do one of two things. We're either going to leave them as they are, or we're going to move them towards the outside of the bed. I haven't decided yet, and I'll decide as we get into this project. So what are the goals for today? We're going to definitely weed, and we are also going to cut back any perennials that need to be cut back in this bed. And then finally, we're going to go shopping for annuals. We're going to shop locally right in my yard here. I have a bunch of plants that I started from seed, and they're going to get put in this bed as well. So let's get started with the weeding. Other than not doing regular maintenance on our arborvitae, like pruning them and keeping them in check, I think another reason they didn't thrive in this bed here was because there was no irrigation and it was extremely dry. It was very sandy. And so it just wasn't the greatest situation. And I do love arborvitae. I think they're beautiful and I think they have a purpose, especially when it comes to screening. And in this case, really the only thing that it was screening was where my shed is and then where my lawn is for my backyard. And I actually want to be able to see that from all angles. I don't want to shade it or hide it. So it was actually a good choice for us to remove those. If they were decent looking, we probably would have just dug them up and put them on Facebook Marketplace for someone to take for free. But they really were not thriving. They weren't looking very good. So that's why we decided to just remove them and dispose of them. There were a few mums that were in here too, perennial mums, at the time when we removed those arborvitae. And those also, as the years were going by, were not thriving, were not looking good. They were getting shaded by the arborvitae. So we removed those, but I definitely didn't get rid of them. I didn't throw them away. I ended up moving them to a different part of our garden, and they looked so beautiful last year. One other thing that we did last year was we top dressed this bed with compost that I had made, and I really think that helped improve the soil and the drainage. So here I have a beautiful pansy. I love this color. And right here you can see that it's starting to go to seed. And you don't want that. You want to remove any seed pods if you have pansies. That just tells the plant to keep on blooming and not tell the plant to go to seed and basically die. So we just want to make sure we're doing that type of maintenance as well in this bed. In terms of spring bulbs, they are just starting to go by. So now it's a great time for me to just go ahead and cut these back. At this point, the energy has been provided to the bulbs that are under the ground. So it's okay to remove the greenery or the leaves from above. Other than adding compost last year, the other thing that we did was we shredded up leaves that had fallen in the fall time, and we also put down those leaves on top of the compost. And we could have done it one of two ways. We could have added the compost and then the leaves on top, like we did, or we could have added the leaves and then the compost on top. Either way is fine, because what we're planning to do after all the annuals are put in this bed is then put some mulch on top of the shredded leaves that were here last fall, just to give it a nice finishing look. Even though we haven't had a frost for a number of weeks, our average last frost date is about May 15th. But generally, they say in this area, it's safe to plant after Memorial Day weekend. And since Memorial Day weekend has just passed, it's now a great time for me to be planting all my annuals out. I don't like to take a chance and plant annuals in the landscape until after Memorial Day weekend, because I just don't want to have to cover all of these plants should we get a frost. Fortunately, there aren't a ton of weeds in this bed, which makes working on this bed a lot easier. In regards to the Candytuft, there will be maintenance work to be done to those as well. They will need to be cut back or sheared back. I usually am not very good about doing that, I'll be honest, but I want to do that this year because I want them to be nice and tight and compact for next year. Sometimes if you cut them back right after they're done blooming, they'll put out a second flush, but that's never happened for me. But then again, I've never been good about cutting them back. So maybe this year will be the year. When it comes to cutting back these bulbs, I could absolutely just cut them and leave the greenery like that. And basically it just will break down over time. But for today, we're just going to cut them and remove them. When it comes to the Ajuga, I know that last year it was very spotty, very sparse in the springtime. And as the season progressed into the summer, the Ajuga definitely spread and filled out the center part of this bed. So I have full faith it's going to do that same thing again this year. I would have thought that in the spring of this year, it would have been very full in the center since it was last fall. But for whatever reason, it's spotty in the center part there. So what we will do is there's certain areas like right here, those will get dug up and moved back into the center. But I do believe that the center part where all the Ajuga is will fill out again like it did last year. So for this Ajuga, what we can do is just lift it. You want to make sure you get all of the root as much as you can. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to plant it right here so it stays in line with the rest of the Ajuga that's in this bed. Oftentimes with ground covers, I hear a lot of people say how terrible, how awful, how invasive they are. They absolutely can be. But as long as you keep them in check and keep removing them and just controlling them in the area that you want them to be, you'll be fine. I tell a lot of people that ground covers have their place in this world as well. I really believe that. That's why they're called a ground cover. You want them to cover the ground in a certain area, be it under a tree or basically to help with erosion in a certain spot of your yard. In this case, I think it looks really pretty, just covering the ground in the center part of my bed. So there we go. I just tucked them in just right here, and they will take off and keep on covering this space over time. I'd love to know if you have ground cover in your landscape, and how do you have it applied in your landscape? Do you have it in a flower bed and you don't love it because it's taking over? Or do you have it in a certain area where you want it to take over? And what is the ground cover? There are so many different kinds out there. And I think it's good to share that with other people that are wondering if they should put ground cover in their landscape. When it comes to the Ajuga, I have another variety of Ajuga that's called chocolate chip that I bought from a backyard plant nursery local to me. And I'm looking forward to putting that somewhere in my landscape as well. So again, as I find Ajuga that's kind of come out of its line, I'm just going to dig it up and I'm just going to keep moving them in towards the center because I really want to just keep them towards the center of this bed. What's nice about where I live here in New Hampshire is the sun rises very early. And I am an early bird anyway, so I like to get up early, have my coffee, then get dressed and just get right outside early in the morning. The bugs aren't bad right now, and it's a great time to be out here. Now, the big thing is, even though there's irrigation in this bed and in many of my beds, the daytime temperatures are getting warmer. They're getting close to, I want to say, sometimes in the 80s, even low 90s. But even the days when it's in the 70s, it still feels quite warm. So it's very important to make sure anything that I'm planting from here on out gets a lot of water. The irrigation is fine if it's there or if it's not there, but I still will be hand watering these daily for at least a week. Anything that I put in here, like all the annuals that we're going to plant today. When it comes to the pansies, I am deadheading them, but they are going to start getting leggy. And what I plan on doing then is I will cut them back by about a half just to make sure they don't get too leggy. But we won't do that today. They still look okay for today. But in another few weeks, I'll have to come back in here and do that job. And all the little helicopters that I call them, they're the little seedlings that fall from the trees here, are starting to fall. And eventually what's going to happen is they will all sprout. It's such a pain, especially when after you've put down a fresh layer of mulch. But fortunately, they're easy to pull. And even if you don't pull them by their roots, as long as you just basically cut them at the head or top of them, they should not become a little tree. So eventually I'll have to come back in here and start basically pulling those out. I originally was going to just leave the Alyssum and let them do their thing. But I think that there's enough in here without it being overwhelming that I can dig them up and move them around the bed. And we'll do that later on in this project as we start planting annuals. And again, you can see that this pansy is definitely getting leggy. And on a different day, I'll make a video just showing you regular pansy maintenance and basically what I like to do to keep or maintain my pansies. There are a few stray perennials that are in here. This is the great blue lobelia. I'll be digging that up and just potting it up because I have plenty others in my landscape, so I'll be adding that to my backyard plant nursery. Tucked in behind this pansy is a seedling of and it looks like Alyssum, but it's not. It's a seedling of Candytuft. So that will also get dug up. And there are some spots actually in this flower bed where I'd like to add more of this Candytuft. So I'm just going to be digging this up and moving this to a different area. Once I've gone ahead and dug up these two perennials, I'm going to go ahead and bring you over to where all my annuals are that I started from seed. And we're going to start picking out annuals to put in this bed. And here I am. We're going to go shopping. You can see that I still have plenty of plants to work with. Because my last average frost date just passed, it is now go time. And we're going to start with this video with getting things planted. Right over here is coleus, and I have a couple of different kinds of coleus, but I think I want to use these ones for the old arborvitae bed. So let's go ahead and we're going to pull one flat out. Aren't they beautiful? We definitely want to have some lobelia. We had it last year in that bed, and boy, did it look striking. So we're going to do some more of that again this year. It's looking great. It might look a little leggy right now, but once it's put into the ground, it will be fine and it'll take right off. Over here, we have lots of vinca, and I have the vinca in pink colors, and I also have it in white. And we're going to go ahead and grab some of the pink vinca. Check it out. It looks really good. Okay, so we have plenty of plants here to work with. So let's go and I'm going to show you where I'm going to place them. So I'm going to do some sort of a pattern, and basically I have Alyssum here, and I'm going to be digging up any Alyssum that I find in the center of the bed because I really want the Alyssum on the outer edge of this bed the whole way around. And I like to use my tools kind of to measure things out. So I'll be measuring the Alyssum a certain distance apart from each other on the perimeter here. And in between each of the Alyssum will go a blue lobelia. I think that will look really striking. They're both low-lying plants, so they're perfect on the perimeter of this entire bed. It'll be an alternating blue, white pattern on the outside. And then next, what I was thinking was the coleus. I thought the coleus would look really pretty towards the center part of the bed. So basically, between the lobelia and alyssum and where the ajuga is, we would have the coleus and a whole ring of it going all the way around the bed. And then the next line in from the coleus would be this beautiful pink vinca. I am pretty sure the vinca will get taller than the coleus. And if not, they're going to be about the same height. So, and I know I did something like that last year and it looked really pretty. And the same thing, the vinca will just line the whole inner part over here, just next to the ajuga all the way around. So I'm going to take you in for a closer look and just show you the start of how I'm going to do this pattern. So we're going to kind of go with what we have here. We have one alyssum here. We have one alyssum here. You can see that they're about this far apart. So if I was to go like this, I could move this alyssum to this section over here. Now I'm doing this in the late afternoon, which is perfect because we're supposed to get some rain. And this bed does get irrigation. So between the rain and the irrigation, the plants should be happy. But I will still give everything a drink of water when we're done with this project. So again, I love using tools like this because I can really just kind of measure things out. And I like to, when I'm pulling the plant, I want to make sure I'm just pulling by the leaf. I don't want to pull by the center part here, by the stem, because I don't want to break it. And I'm just planting them just as deep as they already were in the soil. And what's nice is it just tidies up the bed, makes it look a lot cleaner. And now that we have the alyssum here, the next thing I want to show you in the pattern is in between each of these alyssum, we're going to put one lobelia plant. I absolutely could cut these back just to help them because they are a little leggy. But for today, I'm not going to worry about it. And I'll give it about a week and I'm just going to see how they do. I remember doing this last year and it was the same thing. The plants looked kind of leggy, kind of sad. And as soon as I gave them some liquid fertilizer and they got some water, they got some sun, they just bounced right back and took off. And the big thing with lobelia is lobelia does not like to get dried out. So if you're going to plant lobelia, make sure you give it plenty of water. And I made sure to check where my irrigation lines are in here so I'm not hitting the irrigation. I know that I have one irrigation line that goes about here, and then I have another one a little more inside towards the center of the bed. I am roughing up the roots a little bit because these plants are pot bound. Right here is the irrigation line, and we don't want to hit that, so I'm going to be planting the coleus just on the other side of this irrigation line. These coleus are still pretty small. You know, the way it is with plants that you start from seed, if I had bumped these up earlier on, they would have been bigger, but I'm patient. It's okay. They will take off in no time. And I'm going to be spacing these one shovel length apart like this. And I have all different colors here to play with, which is fun. And I'm not putting any sort of slow release fertilizer in here. This bed was top dressed with a lot of good organic compost. So I will just be giving a liquid fertilizer to all of these once a week. So there is another irrigation line that goes on this side over here. So I feel comfortable just using my shovel, going out like this, and putting the vinca just one shovel length apart over here. And I'm just going to put it in between where the two coleus are, kind of like that. Okay, I'm going to keep on doing the same process with the vinca, with the coleus, with moving the alyssum, as well as planting the lobelia. And once I'm all done, I will show you what it looks like. The plants are in, and I think they are really going to take off once we get more rain and heat and sun. But let me take you in for a closer look and show you how everything looks. So like I mentioned, we have the lobelia here and there, and then in between each of the lobelia are the alyssum. If I could have done things differently, I would have probably started my lobelia from seed a little bit later. And this is good because now I know to update my spreadsheet that I have that keeps track of all my seeds and when I start them, because I think it would benefit the lobelia to be started probably 2 to 3 weeks later than I started them last year. And the other thing I'm going to put in my spreadsheet is to cut my lobelia back by about maybe a half or so, about 3 weeks before my last frost date, just to make sure that they really bush out and don't look so leggy. But again, these will end up bushing out on their own, and if I need to, I can come in afterwards and trim them back a little. Same thing happened last year, and they recovered just fine. And then you can see that there are a bunch of coleus in here, and they just basically go all the way down this way. And then over here are the vinca, and those are looking gorgeous. And again, you know, when it comes to the coleus, when it comes to the vinca, absolutely, I could pinch those back. Again, probably I could have done it maybe 3 weeks ago or so. So these are good things to keep in mind for next year. But I didn't do any pinching last year either, and the plants looked great. But I think it's probably generally good practice to pinch back plants like this, just so that they're a little bit bushier. But it'll be interesting to see as the season progresses how things are looking. But for right now, I think things look great, and I really can't wait to see what they look like in about 3 weeks to a month from now. And I'll definitely keep you updated and posted on how everything's looking. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really liked taking you along and showing you my process for basically attacking a small flower bed like this and trying to do it in one day. And it really is manageable. It's doable. And I think the key is just setting reasonable goals for yourself and making it happen. And there's still more work to be done, but that can be done on another day. For example, I still need to put mulch down in this bed. There are some pansies that are in here that I can move to a different bed or keep them here. But the biggest thing was just getting all of the annuals in, and we got it done. Don't worry, I have a lot more videos just like this when it comes to planting vegetable plants as well as annuals and even perennials. So stay tuned for those videos. I hope you're able to get out in your gardens. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comments section below. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening.